And now to discuss the topic, first, let me introduce Engineer Clement Inze, Director General, Nigerian Hydrological Services. Good to have you on the program, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.
We also have in our studio here Abbas Idris, Director General, FCT Emergency Management Agency. Thank you for joining us, Abbas.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay, and also with us here in the studios is Kayode Fagbemi, is Director, Relief and Rehabilitation of the National Emergency Management Agency. And by the way, all three guests who are here with us in the studios, they are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria whenever we are discussing flooding, and disaster management. Kayode, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for the privilege.
From our Port Harcourt Network Center, we have Godwin Tepiko, who is Zonal Director South of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. Mr. Tepiko, a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Morning for having me.
All right, gentlemen, once again, our pleasure to have you. Just before we get into flooding, of course, we know that it is rain and therefore water that causes flooding. Beginning with Engineer Clem Nze, help us understand what is playing out. Here in the Federal Capital Territory, for instance, from where we are broadcasting at our national headquarters studios, we have noticed that perhaps the quantity and therefore the pattern of rainfall in the month of September looks like we are in July. And elsewhere around the country, there are reports of heavy rainfalls. So, just what is happening to the rainfall pattern before we start getting to the whole idea of flooding?
Thank you for such a leading question. The issue is the Meteorological Agency, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, on the 2nd of February, made a pronouncement in terms of flooding, precipitation, rainfall, the onset and destination dates for each local government area in Nigeria. And refining their prediction, they now begin to give you 72 hourly what the rainfall will be in various parts of the country. Usually July, August, September, the just months are the peak months of the flooding in Nigeria. Now you can pin it down to the issue of climate change. For instance, NIMET made us to understand that there will be late onset for many places and early cessation. This is concentrating the amount of rainfall within a shorter period of months, and that will translate to flooding. Now, as you rightly pointed out, in the month of September, we are having more flooding incidents, like what happened within like Abuja here where we are. So I think it is in line with the prediction that have been made by NIMET, and which have been, like I said, be making 72 hourly prediction or forecast. They will inform Nigerians 22, 23, 24 September, this is what we have. And they will be emphatic about that in terms of precision, that you should not go and relax. What we have said is coming to pass, and unfortunately, if I use that word, it always comes to pass. So it is issue of climate change, and it is within the peak of flooding or rainfall in the country, July, August, September, and even it tappers into October, which is likely to be the case this year.
Well, it seems we haven't really reached the peak yet.
Yes?
We haven't really reached the peak yet.
Now, for us, in our prediction for flooding, going by what happened in 2012, 2020, and 2021, we are seeing, especially with river flooding, that what happened in 2020 is far, far more than what we are having now in terms of river flooding. But when it comes to urban flooding or flash flood, it is somehow intensifying, like the correspondence mentioned, and you rightly mentioned to what happened in Abuja in the month of September.
Okay, again, we always have this walk through the various types of flooding. Just what is impacting the country the most at the moment? Is it river flooding? Is it urban flooding? Or is it coastal flooding? And when I'm more concerned now, say, about even river flooding, because we saw what happened in Kebbi State last year. We do not appear to be having such reports just yet from Kebbi. Are you expecting more waters from upstream River Niger?
I think it is the urban flooding that have been wreaking havoc in Nigeria for 2021. This same, on the 22nd of September 2020, the flood level in Niamey, when we reference Niamey, Niger Republic, because whatever happens there moves on to Nigeria. 22nd of September 2020, the height or the flood level of River Niger in Niamey was 6.50 meters. That was the height. The same date, that is yesterday, 22nd of September 2021, so just ordinary 4.63 meters. If you compare it to the previous years, what is playing out that we are not likely to experience river flooding of the magnitude of what we saw last year, if I thought it will occur in 2021. But I was online speaking with the governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency Senator Abaka Atiku Bagudu, and it was like a sign of relief because he keeps calling to find out where are we related to 2020, which was, quite devastating in Kebbi State. So most likely, we won't say anything like that. As at today, is about 4.63. Last year, it was 6.50. More than 2 meters, about 2 meters difference. That cannot, translate to anything about that magnitude of last year.
Okay, we'll keep talking about the rise and fall of this water level as we continue because we're in the heat of the season at the moment. Abbas Idris, Abuja has gotten its fair share of, negatively, I must say, of flooding. This year, the 12th and the 13th of this month will really go down in history as bad days for this city. Where you have maybe 4 people died, and of course 166 houses, destroyed, and a lot of other infrastructure, especially drainage and some other things. And how bad was the situation? Looking at especially what happened yesterday, it rained all throughout the day, and I could remember our correspondent was somewhere, giving us updates on situations where you've gone there. Now, tell us what is some of the situation and how are you taking care of it?
Well, thank you very much. Really, we had a very bad time, as you said, especially what happened at Trademore Estate. 4 people lost their lives innocently, and it was really devastating. And these are the areas that we had concentrated most because of the prediction issued by NISA and NIMET that AMAC is going to have flooding. And we had already mapped out those areas in the FCT that we were expecting such flooding to occur. And Trademore was one of those notorious places that we keep giving concentration on.
Before you continue, why Trademore?
Yes, because of a lot of infractions in that estate. They have conscripted the waterways. Apart from building on the waterways, they also conscripted the remaining part of the waterways, and a lot of refuse dumping in that area. And Trademore is along the way where discharge pass from other districts, that is coming down from Lokogoma down to Galadima roundabout. At the Galadima roundabout, the march is a hub of about 9 districts. Then from there, it takes its way down to River Niger. And when you get to that side, you are getting towards Trademore. And so the building, most of the houses were built on that waterways. That place is not supposed to be habitable for, to be built for any person. that point in time. And then apart from that, like I said, they conscripted the remaining part of the waterway. So definitely when water comes, it will pass through and get to its own point.
Well, let me still stay with you because you mentioned Lokogoma.
Yeah.
In previous years, Lokogoma was always in the news.
Yeah.
Happily, this year, Lokogoma has not been in the news.
Yeah.
What is the trick?
Yeah, the trick was that the same thing that happened at is happening at Trademore happened at Lokogoma. Lokogoma built on the waterways as well, but at that time when we identified those infractions, more than 250 houses were removed immediately, and thereby the ownership of the estate was also inculcated to the residents of the area, and so they took it upon themselves that nobody will come and build or dump refuse or block the drainages, and that is what has been happening since 2018 to date, and we have not had anything devastating from Lokogoma, and all the waterways from Lokogoma down to Galadimawa roundabout were all expanded. Those who built any retention walls were removed, so it paved way for water, storm water to flow freely. And that was exactly what happened there, and then we are having sanity in Lokogoma.
Okay, thanks, Abbas Idris. Let's go to Port Harcourt, where Godwin Topiko, who is the Zonal Director of South-South for NEMA, is. Just give us a sense of what is happening. We know that, of course, Rivers, from its name, is a coastal area. You have more months of rainfall, but what has been the experience this year?
Thank you. In Rivers State, it's been predicted that major cities will experience urban flooding this year. NISA and NIMET had given us that prediction. And as a South-South Zonal Office, we had carried out campaigns on sensitization and awareness across the states, cascading down even to the local governments to organize stakeholders meeting to inform residents of the implication of the prediction this year. So what we experienced in Port Harcourt, particularly a couple of days, is just a confirmation of the prediction that major cities will suffer from urban flooding. And Port Harcourt is a major city in Rivers State. From our experience, especially the flood of Tuesday this week, when my officers went out for an assessment, we observed that the drains were blocked. We also observed that because of indiscriminate disposal of waste, poor waste management in the city, the water could not find its way out into the river. Again, what we observed was that the capacity of the drainage system is not such that can take the volume of water that came from the heavy rainfall that occurred that day. So the result was heavy flooding within the city. Major cities were flooded. Besides Port Harcourt, government areas like Emoha, like Ogba, Egbema, and Ndoni were also flooded. We have been there to do assessment to see the level of impact the flood had caused on these communities and the local government areas. So that has been our experience. It's largely because of urban flooding, where you find that the drainage capacity is not sufficient, it's not large enough to take the volume of water that came from the rain that day. And because it's urban and flooding and flash flood, much later, a couple of hours, when we drove around town again, we discovered that the whole water had disappeared. So our advice to residents has been that there should be conscious effort to continue to clean the drainages And residents should be discouraged from using the waterways as receptacle for disposal of garbage and refuse. Because once that is done, it will not continue to exacerbate flooding. Because we have come to know that flooding now is socially constructed because of values and activities and practices of citizens. That has exacerbated flooding in recent times. So if they are discouraged from these practices, it will help. And again, we have looked at, Port Harcourt is growing in urbanization. The high tendency where people begin to build on water channels, begin to convert floodplains and fill them and use them for development should also be discouraged. Because these are natural reservoirs for water. And once those places are occupied, the tendency is that water naturally will find its level and begin to overflow the adjoining surroundings, causing flooding. So this has been our experience, and we have been in touch with the state to continue to advocate that there must be enforcement of building codes within the city to ensure that what is not supposed to be at a particular place should not be. Development should be characterized. Wherever we have drainages should be there. Wherever we have buildings should be there. And we should not continue to build indiscriminately to block the waterways. We have also advised that the river canals and channels should be desilted, because once these waterways are clogged by silt, of course, it will reduce the volume of water it can take. And the tendency is that the runoff will begin to overflow the surrounding and cause flooding. So that has been the issue in Port Harcourt. It's largely that of urban flooding.
Well, thank you so much, Godwin from Port Harcourt. Let's hear from you, Kayode Fagbemi, Director Relief and Rehabilitation, NEMA. At this point in time in the year, I must say, you at NEMA are having it not really easy, given the fact that a lot is happening around the country in terms of devastation of flood. Adamawa State, for instance, as you might have heard, had 74,000 people displaced, and of course about maybe 4 people that have died. And as we just mentioned, 7 people died really. And as we've mentioned here, Abuja had its own share, and a lot of other places. You've just had Port Harcourt and of course some other places. Now your table is really filled up, and of course we are not yet at the peak of the season, and there is much more coming. How worrisome is this situation to you at NEMA?
Thank you very much. May I first say on behalf of the DG NEMA, I want to thank the NTA for the way you have taken up the challenge concerning flood. I remember we've been here now severally talking about this flood, even this year. That shows the commitment you have. It is very worrisome to NEMA. Just yesterday, our zonal coordinator on Gombe informed me that in Krifi local government, some people were displaced as a result of the flooding, and they're in the primary school. And then the school now want to resume. They now ask her, what can you do? We want the school because the people are in school. We want to take them away. And I told her, it is not our responsibility. People see response or preparedness or mitigation as only NEMA's responsibility. Every little thing. I said, look, he should find a place to keep them. We are there to support the state. And until every level of governance realize this, we will continue to have problems. They want NEMA now to go and build camp, a tent for them, and relocate. Of course, you are going to make the people, the children not to be able to go to school for those periods. We have a lot of reports, so many reports. That of Trademore, the report is, when you see the report, the number of vehicles, over 15 vehicles destroyed, so many people's houses, affected, they lost their valuables. Every state of the federation will have report. This is apart from the conflict, we have people displaced as conflict, we have the Northeast, we have so much on our table. It is very worrisome. But we know on our side, we know that flood can only be tackled through two major processes: the structural measures and non-structural measures. For the structural measures, like the FCDA did, remove those buildings. We can't do that. For the culverts, drainages, the states have to do that. Our non-structural measures are the education we give, the campaign awareness, in telling people to remove, the siltation, and then ensure they don't, there's proper management. This year, 13th of October, is the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. The UN recognizes that governance is the major issues. The theme this year is disaster risk reduction governance. If the local government realizes that whatever they build can be destroyed within a day, they will leave some money and have the committee or agency to manage disaster, to prevent it. If the state government realizes that a lot of resources, millions, billions, can be wasted within 2 days, they will make sure that they are able to prevent. So the UN is emphasizing risk reduction governance. Let everybody, every state, every local government, individuals make effort. The resources is no longer available. There are so many requests for relief materials. It's not just possible any longer because we know the situation currently. And so you must reduce the risk, because we know that 7 to 10 naira you spend on relief, if you spend 1 or 2, you prevent it. What does it cost? How much does it cost, to move the drainages? How much to clean it? How much does it cost to expand those things? I want to say that many of those drainages were built long time ago. But because now urbanization has, come up, as I mentioned the other day, we have now increased runoff. That's what is happening everywhere. The increased runoff, because of the paving of our compound. The estate was not there. The treatment estate was not there before. But now, go there. The report I have on my table is that everybody has cemented this compound. So where does the water go? It can't infiltrate, it can't percolate, it can't go anywhere. So it's increasing the runoff. Everybody wants a clean compound, no green area. Even some of the floodplain there have been converted. And you think we are clever. I think everybody, we must take the right decision now, so that we don't continue to spend money diverting resources to relief and rehabilitation.
Oh, Fagbemi, if I may just add here, whenever there is flood like this, a lot of money is being spent on relief materials and the transportation and taking care of the victims and the rest of them. And one would wonder if such amount of money is being used to really take care of the situation before the rain starts, and even engage the state governments, that is in state and local governments, in trying to see to it that if we had great losses this year, we should not have half of such next year, and maybe over time we find a solution to it. At the end of the day, we can't avoid natural disasters, but we can minimize it. Now, has NEMA ever thought about moving in that direction, trying to see to it that, serious engagement is being taken, I would say, with the governments at subnational and local levels, in order to see to it that these issues that cause flood are really removed and flood minimized, at least in the span of 5-6 years to come?
Thank you very much. We have done that. And let me just itemize what we did. After we got the rainfall outlook, the flood outlook from NISA and the climate prediction from NIMET, the DG NEMA wrote letters to all the governors, informing them, and we did, the maps of the local government that will be affected, attached, that please, these are the steps you need to take. Not only that, There was a remainder to those letters. After that, we invited all the SEMAs, State Emergency Management Agency, to Abuja here. We didn't just invite them, we paid for them. Because if we invite them without paying for them, their DTA and transport, some of them will not come. They will tell you they don't have money. We paid for them, put them in hotel to brainstorm for 2 days on what do you need to do in your area to reduce this risk. We did all that. I mean, the problem is you cannot expect the federal government to go to Lagos State and be removing the waste in their drainages, or go to Port Harcourt, or to do that. It's not possible. The reason why relief is done is that the people now are suffering. You can't leave them. You need to bring succor to them. If you don't do that, you just have to do that. It's not that sometimes the money is not there. It is just that the government has to just give money to make sure. But we are saying that we can reduce this risk. Let me tell you, the flood on its own is not a disaster. It is because we have made ourselves vulnerable because of our actions, because of our inactions. So it has a lot of other reasons we have flood. We have flood associated with our dams, which we mentioned here. Many of the dams are now just releasing water because the water was not used for irrigation in dry season. So these are compounding it. So it's not possible. Every of the stakeholders must take its responsibility, and we have brought them together. We brought water resources. We brought all the stakeholders together to say this is what should be done. But in a case where you go to a state, you have 2 people in SEMA. What would 2 people do? They don't even have a vehicle. They cannot even call other stakeholders. Because as we call stakeholders, they should also call stakeholders meetings. A Minister of Environment, Minister of Works, everybody should be involved at that level. Disaster management is not an exclusive responsibility to the federal government. In fact, it's not even concurrent. It's there. Everybody, even in household, must make sure there is preparedness in their household. If I know my place is likely to be affected by flood, I will move my things up. My certificate, all things, I will move them up. I mean, these are the preparation. And we've been doing that. We've been doing a lot of training. We've done a lot of advocacy. All our staff now are going to the field. You had him, the Port Harcourt guy. The person in Gombe told me he's going to Bauchi. He's going to have stakeholders meeting with the state. We've been talking to the state. The minister spoke to the governors in the federal, SEC, National Economic Council. He talked to the governors. He talked to the ministers in FEC last year. So these are the things we know, because we have different sectors that are involved, and everybody must take this responsibility serious. The producing agencies, they are doing theirs. They give us the information, and we go to cascade it down. And in some cases, you saw Mr. President even spoke about it the other day, and let everybody at every level of governance take responsibility.
Okay, Mr. Kayode Fagbemi, thank you very much there for your incisive responses to the questions that have been raised. One point that you made just before we bring in Engineer Claire Nunze, I mean, we've had another water expert, Professor Emmanuel Adano, who's of the National Water Institute, tell us on Good Morning Nigeria on various occasions that flood on its own isn't bad. That's the point that Fagbemi made, because it's helpful for helping to fertilize the soil, because you have alluvial deposits that will come in. It is flooding that is the key issue there that we have to worry about. But again, back to Engineer Claire Nunze. Well, we have tended to focus on the river flooding, say from the River Niger end. There are 2 principal rivers, River Benue. We have seen the disaster in Adamawa. I wouldn't know whether the causative factor is urban or whether it is river flooding. What are you reading from the Benue axis of our main river system? I'm sure that you know that people continue to have the apprehension about Lagbo Dam and so on and so forth, whether they will release their waters and all that. What is the outlook from that axis, and what should states along that corridor expect?
Really, that has been a major source of concern when it comes to flooding in Nigeria. The River Benue. We have a number of dams on the River Niger axis and a few of its tributaries, like River Kaduna, where you have Shirolo Dam. So that controls or regulates the inflow from River Kaduna into River Niger. Then, but on River Benue, we don't have a dam in our own portion of the River Benue, though we have on some of its tributaries, like Kasinala River. We have a Kasimbila Dam that, apart from other purposes for which it was built, it also regulates the inflow into River Benue. Now, it's a bit worrisome to us in the sense that Cameroon is a little bit impregnable in terms of availing us with information, despite the fact that in 2016, their president, Paul Biya, was in Nigeria. I met with our own president. A memorandum of understanding was signed between the two countries so that before any major thing happens upstream within your own portion of River Benue, you should inform Nigeria. We'll tell as much as we can as a country or from our own level to ensure that we get the information. Like in 2019, when we are already out of the flooding season. Adamawa, Taraba, Benue were flooded because they opened their dam on the 10th of October, 2019. And we kept calling them, they denied until on the 1st of November. They accepted that for 21 days, 3 weeks, that they were spilling, that they were caught unawares. They thought that it was already over in the northern part of Cameroon. So what I'm saying, I think they are hiding information from us. They're not working according to the letter of the MOU. In fact, in 2019, my minister, the Minister of Water Resources, Njila Baladamo, had to cause a letter to be written to their own foreign minister, to our own foreign minister in Nigeria, as to why they are breaching the terms of MOU. But coming back home within Nigeria, the major tributaries of River Benue and even River Benue itself, the flood level is still quite below what it was last year. Kasinala River is much lower, the flood level. They likewise Makode. We measure at Kasinala, we measure the measurement we take from there, we take at Benue before coming down to Lokoja. So the level of the water is has no cause for alarm for now, compared to the previous years, like 2019, 2020. The flood level, the level of the river is low. So we're expecting that there may be no reason for flooding in that aspect. What happened in Taraba, like you mentioned, Jalingo, was urban flooding. That's what happened on the, I think, 10th of July and the 5th of August.
Now, still on this issue of Adamawa State and, of course, River Benue, flooding its, banks, and a lot of people happen to be very much affected. The relationship between Nigeria and Cameroon has been very much cordial. We must accept that. And the issue of having a dam in Cameroon and then, sort of providing or rather supplying or a source of power or energy for them is a good development. And that was what was supposed to have been done in Nigeria, and of course Cameroon took it first. And that wouldn't stop Nigeria from doing something like that anywhere along the line that would just, help, mitigate this, the effect of this flood, and of course use it positively. Secondly, in Adamawa State, of course, a lot of villages and communities and settlements are on the banks of the Benue. And that is why you find, at this time, 74,000 people displaced. And then Lagdo might have not released its own dam, its waters yet. I mean, are we as a people, as a country, looking towards two issues here? One, the desiltation of the River Benue, in order to see to it that the water level goes down. And then two, having to make some or create some more dams along the way, and even have irrigation facilities spread all over across that area in order to have some more agriculture-wise, and then talking about power supply too. Are we looking towards that in the ministry?
Like you rightly mentioned, it was between 1977 and 1982 that Cameroon built their own dam, Lagdo Dam. They also advised Nigeria to do same, to build a buffer dam within our own portion of the Benue. Then Nigeria began as expected by making a study and then design, which they came up with. Nigeria came up with what we call Dasen Hausa Dam, which is about more than twice the capacity of Lagdo Dam. Lagdo Dam is about 7.6 billion cubic meters, whereas our own is about 15 or 16 billion cubic meters, the one we designed to be situated at Fufure local government area in a community called Dasen Hausa. Unfortunately for Nigeria, we couldn't, even when resources were quite abundant at that time.
What was that?
I said 1977, 1982.
Okay.
Then when the Cameroon began and advised Nigeria to do same in their own portion, but till today, ours remains on the drawing board. Now, recently, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, when he came on board, he set up a committee, the current Honorable Minister, when he came up on board in 2015, that did an assessment of all abandoned projects in water resources. And about 116 of them were found. And then more work was done to know which of them are viable that can be completed, depending on the level of completion before abandonment. And this issue of Lassen Hausa Dam had been picked up to go and do the redesign of that. But what about done in maybe 1985 or 70 something can no longer be feasible in terms of the capacity was going by the current trend. So that I understand is at play now to see how that dam, the design should be done for current realities. Now that apart, we'll be advocating having more dams within the tributaries, because to build another giant dam, a multi-purpose dam on River Benue by Nigeria, I know what is happening about Mambila Dam, how much it's taking Nigeria. Then to begin a similar dam of close to the same magnitude will be quite involved in terms of finances. But currently, or in the alternative, we've been advocating that more earth dams could be built within the tributaries of River Benue to reduce the amount of water that comes in. Like we have Kasimbila Dam, which also having a hydropower component there. So if we have such within the tributary of River Benue, River Donga, River Gongola, as well and so forth, it will reduce what is coming inside the main trunk. We also have been talking about harvesting this water. Like you refer to Professor Adanu of this institute, and my colleague Fagbemi had mentioned. Flood in itself is not a challenge, it's not an issue. It is how we manage it. Now, why can't we as a nation, or those states that are contiguous to rivers Niger and Benue, devise a means whereby, in my own word, arrest this water within their localities, instead of allowing it to wreak havoc and disappear within some days, and then we'll be having very many number of months of lack of water. Nigeria will lose over 200 billion cubic meters of fresh water annually to the Atlantic. And this is needed in so many other places, I mean, other countries of the world. Yeah. When they come and see what is happening here, it's quite painful when they see that we are losing such an amount of water. So if we can build diversion canals, which will reduce conversion water after reaching a certain threshold, instead of causing flooding, it will divert to a certain distance where they must have built a reservoir and then detain this water there for year-round irrigated agriculture. Now, the issue of deseating or dredging, I know that around 2008, the government of the time then embarked upon deseating or dredging river Lower Niger from Baro to Warri, about 500 kilometers distance, and it is quite humongous, the kind of work that ought to be done. More than 80 is it a billion cubic meters of rubbish will be excavated from the river? Then for me as an individual, I don't know what another person's opinion may be. Where are you going to dump all those? At the time when you are passing, in Lokoja, at the Murtala Mohammed Bridge, you will see the machine there on the right-hand side pumping. I begin to wonder, where are you pumping this sand to? So the issue of deseating or dredging, I don't know how, where do you take the rubbish? You may do it, the next time it is washed back to the river. And then, this is coming from Cameroon, for the Benue, for instance. You can't prevent the movement of the silt from all those countries arriving in your own side. But for the remote, small rivers, small canals here and there, I think we need to desilt all those ones.
Wow. Engineer Nze, thank you very much. I mean, you've raised again the issue of the dredging of the River Niger from Barrow to Warri. At some point, what was talked about had to do with capital dredging. It said that then after capital dredging, you would now have maintenance dredging. And that, again, some experts said that if you were dredging, you were not dredging from shore to shore. You were dredging the main corridor for navigation. And I think the depth of the draft they had was about 2.5 meters or so, yes, just for the use of barges. But the critical question you raise now is to say, yes, assuming your draft depth, that's to say the depth of what you were digging was, say, 2.5, and you were taking out rubbish of the amount that you mentioned, where are you going to put the rubbish? It's like what we see in urban areas. You desilt drainages, that's to say gutters, they put them by the side, they leave them there, it will cake, and then once the first rain comes, then it goes back again. You say, oh, the gutters are blocked. So we need to change our orientation. Abbas Idris, I'm coming back to you in the FCT. We have seen what the FCT on its own has tried to do. I know that there are issues with development control. How well you are working in synergy is an open question. But this year, we haven't heard from Lokogoma, happily so. We also haven't heard from Giri, happily so, because you took major steps, to deal with this. Now, Trademore is back in the news this year. It was in the news last year. I remember you sending me a video of a flooding incident and of unfortunate incident of a man who was swept away in the flood, even while he was being warned, and his body was recovered, as some obstruction. In terms of risk reduction and communicating this reduction measure to residents of affected locations, what are likely to be your steps? Again, let's say for Trademore, part of government reaction would just be, you just go mark all the houses, mark them. You say, we'll give you 1 week notice, everybody park. If you don't park, then you bring bulldozers and law enforcement officers, you clear. What would be the engagement mechanism for all this? So people can prepare themselves adequately and know that, we have to get alternative locations. If we remain here, another flood will come and sweep us away. Again, maybe you should start by explaining to those who probably do not know that Trademore is on the corridor path of all the major waters going to River Niger.
Thank you very much. Let me begin with the last part that you requested me to do, which I had already explained, that Trademore is really lying on the waterways going to River Niger. And I said that it had a stopover at Galadima, and from there it now takes its course down to River Niger. Meanwhile, on the issue of risk communication, which we have taken very seriously after the previous flooding in the FCT, we had communicated, and we've been communicating severally with the communities. Our stakeholders are very much well engaged. We brought them after the release of the early warning by NISA and NIMET. My senior colleague DG was there to highlight the implication of the release, in particular to FCT, because what was NASA released, they released the national outlook, and we asked them to come and give us the FCT outlook. How is it going to be? With in the congregation of all the stakeholders, including development control, NIMET also did their own, and we brought an external water engineer from independent to come and give us his own opinion about the FCT, which they made a very wonderful presentation, and everybody was really heartwarming about the presentation. So everybody was carried along, and we now have, at our own end, we feel that it is high time that we bring in the communities themselves, and we had also proposed to the administration that the developers must have their own response plan as well. Because if the developers will have their own response plan, they will be able to own up to whatever hazard that is coming up. The problem we are facing is that whatever we are doing, we forget to factor in the risk involved. We always look at the beautiful side of it without forecasting what will happen in the next few years. Like, if we really think the climate change is real, then we have to really concentrate and look at it. Okay, I have a beautiful plan to build this house. What is the risk factor? Will it be, if that is after assessing the land that you are going to build, is it going to be affected by any external risk that might come and hit me? So we don't really take that into cognizance. But if we can do that, we factor the risk in all our decision making, we'll be able to really manage whatever that we are doing, and we'll be able to really expect that flood is going to be real. You can't build on the waterways and say that you don't expect flood to come, and then you expect the government to come and clean clean the drainages around your houses. So if we build that resilience and then communicate well with them and give them the confidence that they have to own up, everybody should own up to his own environment, then we definitely have a free and easy access to managing flooding. And I think the risk communication that we did in the previous period has really helped. You can see that in the satellite towns, we don't have much problems because they adhere strictly to what we are saying. We have jingles in 5 languages going on, and then we involve the town criers. Just about 2 weeks, we finish the induction of the town criers with the divers, giving them the training, because we feel with the COVID we can't go and have town halls meetings again, but we tell the district heads and the chiefs that, okay, this is what we want to your town crier to communicate to the public, and they are doing well. So it is only in the city that we are having problems, because those who think they are enlightened refuse to really take the early warning, and that is why we are having problems. All the death tolls that we had, you can find out that it's within that range of the elites. Nobody from the rural community that ever lost his own life. We say don't drive in the running water, you will go with your jeep and drive and die. That is the problem. So we really need to, we are now concentrating on that, and that is why I think if you look at the death toll, you find out that it is not from the river flooding, it is really from the urban flooding that is coming. People just come with their money, they go and buy land and start building without making any calls to the necessary agencies who can really advise them on what to do. And then at the end of the day, they will now come and say nobody can remove that building from that. So that is the problem we're having.
Well, that's really unfortunate.
When people are building, we're about to build, they will say the estate has C of O. It has CFO, everything, infrastructure, everything
Exactly.
is.
And who even
everything
provided
is,
the CFO in the
That
first
is-
place?
well, you can't have CFO. CFO will not tell you how you're going to build.
No.
And
That's
again,
building development control.
and again, you see, the issue is that between the owner of a plot and the developer, that is the only communication. You communicate with the developer. Developer can give you any kind of document, but it is left for you to take another time to go and then cross-check with the relevant agency, because the developer is telling you that he got approval from the relevant authority. So go ahead and build. And once he sold the land, you will never see him. again.
We'll talk more about this when we come back from the break. It sounds really funny sometimes. This thing should not be taking place in the urban cities.
Exactly.
Because this is the most urban town in Nigeria, FCT, of course, Abuja. And once that is happening, what do you expect from other areas, therefore?
One of the most urban towns.
One of the most urban
Lagos will complain. Kaduna will complain.
Anyway, we're talking about, Nigeria's response to flooding in 2021 on Good Morning Nigeria. Stay with us for more after the break.
All right, you're welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. You know, Nadabo, one of the key things that we keep hearing each time we discuss flood and flooding has to do with the effective and efficient management of our water systems and water resources. Engineer Nze has drawn our attention now again to the fact that we have a lot of fresh water getting into the ocean and, of course, getting salinated once it gets into the ocean, and that others who are in search of fresh water would, of course, be pretty angry that we are allowing all of this to run off. But, let's talk about this again. In terms of river flooding, we also have challenges, of course, with urban flooding, which is the point we'll come to, because nobody expects the federal government or NEMA to come and be deseating drains or building, more commodious drainage systems so as to contain more volume of water. But an issue that emerged from one of our previous conversations has to do with, well, we are in the crisis. We're in the crisis, let's say, in the heat of the rainy season now. During the dry season, what do? We just everybody just says, no, well, it's normal, everything is normal, including our major water bodies, namely our dams. Kayode.
Thank you very much. We have done an assessment, and we know the causes of flooding in Nigeria. And one of them is the poor dam management. We know that already, that we have so many dams now. Some are with the private sector, some are with the river basin, some are with Ministry of Power, some are Ministry of Water Resources. Most of our dams, they are called multipurpose. They are multipurpose dams. They are built for hydroelectricity generation. They are built for domestic water supply. They are built for irrigation. Most of them. But what do? We don't use them for hydroelectricity. I am aware of that. In fact, some of them, the turbines were installed, they were never used. Some, the turbines were put there, they were not installed. So, which means the water is there, you are not using it to run the turbine. Number two, the irrigation that it was designed for, large dams designed for irrigation. We are not doing much irrigation. Maybe just few farmers will just carry their water pump. We are really not using them for irrigation. And so when you have an amount of water, rainfall, within a short period as we have within this week, the dam is under threat. If the waters are not released, then they can lead to dam breakage, which will cause more damage. So many of our dams currently will be releasing water. At least I have a report of one in the southwest that they couldn't use their water in the dry season. So since May, they started releasing water. But May is when we have rainfall. So what are you doing with the water? Why don't you why don't you release it in the dry season and leave space to accumulate more water? We have a lot of flooding in Ogun State and Lagos State as a result of more water has been released from dams. And it's happening. We have Bakolori Dam, we have Goroyo Dam, we have Kiri Dam. We are going to interrogate this. After this flood, we are going to have flood after action review. We're going to send people to find out what has happened. Because if we don't need to complain about food insecurity in this country. You can grow maize, you can grow the rice 2-3 times a year. The flood of 2020, the federal government gave NEMA money to support the farmers. And we bought for them seedling, we bought water pump for them, we bought a lot of agric input, fertilizers for them. We were going to encourage them, making sure that these dams are used, so that you don't wait until it becomes critical, threatening the environment before you release the water. I think we're going to engage all our stakeholders, the dam managers, because some of the dams are no longer in the hand of government. They are in the hand of private sector. Some are under the river basin. The river basins, how much are they doing now? They are not doing much. So they can use this water. And until we begin to do that, we'll see that aspect of flooding coming. Because some people will just wake up and see water. Where does it come from? The dam managers will know that if he informs you that he's releasing water, you are likely to hold him liable. So they may not inform you, just as Lagdo did not inform Nigeria. And so we need to interrogate this, ensuring that there is proper dam management. Because dam can be used for flood control, but they can also be sources of flooding when they are not properly managed. And that's where we are now.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Godwin Kingsley. Really, I think borrowing or rather looking at what President Obasanjo once said, Nigerians have no business being poor, and of course no business being hungry. Yeah. We have all it takes in order to really feed ourselves and of course be rich, because the resources are there, especially the water resources. Let's move over to Port Harcourt and then hear from Godwin. And then the problem in Port Harcourt seems to be very much of an urban flooding, and that is the major problem there, I believe. Years and years, over and over, there we go. The same problem occurs. I don't know if I may ask you this, Godwin. What are you going to do now differently to arrest the situation in Port Harcourt, or rather assist in arresting the situation, since it is not only the business of NEMA alone to, forestall flooding and then take care of flood?
Thank you very much. Like my director, Relief and Rehabilitation, has said earlier, a lot of human activities exacerbate flooding, and there are structural and non-structural measures that can be put in place to help mitigate the impact of flooding. In Rivers State, in particular on Monday, I had a meeting with the state government at the instance of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Rivers State, where other MDAs that are involved in the water and flood management were all there, and all the council chairmen, the 16 of them, whose local government areas have been predicted to either experience high probable flood or low probable flood this year. And I had informed them about what they need to do, because it's not NEMA that will go into the structural measures that will help to ameliorate the impact of flood in Rivers State. Indeed, the structural measures are supposed to be carried out by both the state and the local government. So I have informed them to begin to prepare for the flood by partnering with NEMA to identify high grounds where vulnerable communities can be relocated in the event that such communities will be displaced. We have also informed them that there is a need to carry out sensitization at the community levels using the CDCs to inform residents about the project, and that there should be effective waste management in the state. A situation where there is indiscriminate disposal of waste that end up at the end of the day into the water drains is not good. It's exacerbating flooding in Rivers State. That we have told them. And that residents should be responsive enough, because at the end of the day, there are people that suffer it, so that there should be value reorientation, where residents should be highly discouraged from using the water channels, the drainages, as a receptacle for waste disposal. That we have told them. We have been carrying out this sensitization. We must continue to do it until people change their attitude. Like I said, flooding now has become socially constructed. Our values, our activities, and practices exacerbate flooding. So on our part, what we are doing is to educate, to inform, to enlighten, to carry out campaigns across the states. And that we have been doing right from when the prediction came in February and in May through NISA. We have been carrying out this advocacy and sensitization across the states under the South Southern Office, and Port Harcourt in particular. That it is important the government becomes more aware of their responsibilities. These things is not NEMA that can carry them out. Ours is to educate them and help them to carry out this because of our experience and our skills, in managing flood. And that is what we have been doing, So the government has assured, in fact, they are committed, the Rivers State government, that this year they will be able to manage the flood. In fact, the executive governor, through the secretary to state government, had mandated the council chairman to go to work to ensure that they put in measures in place to be able to mitigate the impact of the flooding on the citizens this year. And that is what we'll be doing. And we hope, and hope very strongly, that that directive will be carried out so that we will not continue to experience what we experienced in the last few days in Rivers State. That is what we've been doing.
Thank you very much, Godwin Tepiko, for your input. Let's come back to the Abuja studios. Engineer Clemenze, I mean, it's a pertinent question to ask whether, as a country, we are prepared to tackle urban flooding. Because if this year, as you have indicated, our critical experience has been with urban flooding, are we prepared to tackle urban flooding? And if we are, what are the signs? And if we are not, what should we do?
Yes, urban flooding has been the major issue for 2021 as against the river flooding. To us as an agency, we say that we have not been seeing commensurate level of response or preparedness on the part of the actors towards ensuring that the predictions do not come true or are ameliorated. The actions are at the states. Somebody called me yesterday that he heard me talking on television, on radio. I said, I don't know when that one happened. That I was saying that, are you expecting Abuja to go to, maybe say Port Harcourt, or go to Umuahia and begin to clean their drainages? No. These things are happening at the state levels. It is expected that there should be adequate response to the predictions to ensure that measures are taken ahead of time. But I must commend KB State in terms of taking action once they get the information. I must also commend Jigawa State. In fact, they have been working around the clock to the point that His Excellency, the governor of Jigawa State, had to invite the experts from Netherlands that are more experienced, that are more endangered, if I use that word, in terms of their location, living below the sea. How are you managing it? So we expect, my agency might be going there soon, maybe in the next few weeks, to interact. They have gotten all the reports that will be made, that Institute in Kaduna has made, and other relevant stakeholders have made. The committee is working on it as we speak in Jigawa State, preparatory to receiving the expert when they will come. We now have a round table. The governor is saying enough is enough of flooding in Jigawa State. That's what Jigawa State governor is saying. that he wants to put a permanent stop to flooding in his state. So we are expecting that other state governments should follow suit. Not only, like I've heard sometime in August, when we were already inside the flooding season, a governor in the south was given a marching order to a contractor to ensure that he finishes the drainage construction. I mean, where do you pour your concrete? Where will the cement is set if you are building drainage in August? So we expect that subsequently, but what is happening these days is there's a heavy awareness anyway, which I believe that at the long run, we get it right.
Okay, thank you, Engineer.
In the long run, that will also mean that stakeholders should begin to tweak their orientation. It is not when you see a mega project that it is the governor that built this university, the governor that built this airport. There are critical issues that affect you and I on a daily basis, such as deflooding. I mean, what is just an example he has given with Jigawa. You may not see it on paper, you may not see it as a mega project, but the impact will be there for years to come.
And that is exactly what I want to pose to Abbas here. So, you know, as we round up this program, we have less than 2 minutes left in this show. What would you do differently now?
Well, I think I really want to cue into the question posed to my senior colleague. Yes, I think we can be able to manage flooding and respond to flooding, but except if we continue to educate the decision makers. Because you find it very difficult when a flood that occurred in another state, a senator, with due respect, and a House of Rep raising to move a motion for NEMA to come to their own rescue. Meanwhile, the State Emergency Management Agency is in coma. You understand? So we need to really, the governors, the senators, and all the decision makers need to understand the structure, the level of response and mitigation of all the risk, not irrespective of whether flood or whatever, that the first responder begins from the local government area, because we need to have the local government structure in place, we need to have the state structure in place before the national structure. So, and that is how it's going to be, except if his local government is overwhelmed, the state will come in, the state is overwhelmed before NEMA comes in. But we don't follow that structure. So we need to educate this, the decision makers to understand that structure, and then we follow it. Then we get to the destiny land.
Okay, thanks. Kayode Fagbemi, very quickly, as part of risk reduction measures, are we going to see a time during the dry season, not rainy season, during the dry season, where thousands in different parts of the country are employed in urban areas to begin deseating the drains? And as you deseat, they are packing them out. It is not during the dry season, rainy season, that you start deseating gutters. No. During the dry season, nobody cares. You say, no, the road is good, so we are all driving. But when you look at the gutters, they are all full of trash. Can we see that happen anytime soon through your stakeholder engagement?
Yes, thank you very much. That is what part of the things we are going to do in the flood after action review. We want people to know now that climate change is here. There must be adaptation, there must be mitigation. Engineers should know that if they intend to construct a drainage of 5 meters, they should extend it now to 10 meters because of climate change. So everybody, we are bringing people, we bring them back to Abuja here as COVID allows, bringing all the states again, bringing all stakeholders together, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and all those that are concerned, and then ensuring that states go back to work, and not when it is too late to do that. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so very much, Fagbemi Kayode, Director of Relief and Rehabilitation, NEMA. It's our pleasure being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also thank Engineer Clement Eze, Director General, Nigerian Hydrological Services. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Our good friend Abbas Idris, it's our pleasure being with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my
A very
pleasure.
big thank you also to Godwin Pico, Zonal Director, South of NEMA. You've been an asset to us this morning. Thank you for joining us. And thank you also for being part of this program. All of you out there, it's our pleasure. And before we round up, let's take a bit of sports.
Nigerian players were the good-to-go men as Leicester City put 2 past Millwall to progress into the 4th round of the Carabao Cup Wednesday. Exchanges in the first half end goalless until Leicester's